In this WrestleTalk news, Cody Rhodes was not planned for a world title reign, a Raw star is injured, and Luke's review of Raw. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
You know, it's been a wild year for wrestling when the story of Cody Rhodes leaving AEW and returning to WWE might not even be in the top 5 biggest things to happen this year. But happen it did at this year's WrestleMania, no less, where he returned to face Seth Rollins. After outlining that his sole purpose for his WWE return was to win a world title, he then unfortunately tore his pectoral muscle and then wrestled a match against Rollins inside Hell in a Cell because he's a nutter, I guess. But with the full WWE machine behind Cody Rhodes up to and after his injury, with Countdown to Cody segments, huge entrances, and keeping his entire AEW presentation, it felt like it would be a matter of time before his goal was fulfilled and he would become a world champion in WWE, especially with Roman Reigns winning both world titles at WrestleMania, leading to speculation from fans that Cody could win one of the titles and Roman could keep the other. However, it seems it wasn't that simple, as according to Fightful Select, at the time that Cody was injured and forced to be sidelined, Vince McMahon had not solidified plans to make Cody Rhodes a world champion with either WWE or Universal Championships. On the contrary, Vince McMahon was reportedly all on board for the Roman Reigns double title reign, and there weren't ideas floated from Vince to indicate that he was ready to move on from that idea this summer. Once Cody does return to the ring, with many fans speculating the Royal Rumble in January will be a good time to do it, many expect Cody to win the Rumble and defeat Roman at WrestleMania, though there is also the factor of The Rock floating around as well. But even if Cody can make it back for the Rumble, maybe a world title might not be in his future. Then again, it's now the Triple H era rather than Vince, so maybe plans have changed. I honestly have no idea, but it's kind of exciting not to know, isn't it? On last night's Raw, it was revealed that Montez Ford, one half of the Street Profits, was seemingly suffering from some sort of leg or foot injury. During a backstage segment between the Usos and the Profits, Jay mentioned that if Montez were to say something disrespectful about the Tribal Chief, he'd put his other foot in a boot. To which the camera revealed Ford had a tall walking boot on one leg. It's unclear right now whether this injury is kayfabe, when it came about, or the severity of it, if it is real, but regardless, WrestleTalk would like to wish Ford a speedy recovery if the injury is indeed legit. Someone who doesn't need to recover, because the spot didn't work, is Drew McIntyre, who was supposed to have a fireball thrown in his face on SmackDown a couple weeks ago, but it didn't work and it completely missed his face. Speaking to My San Antonio, McIntyre spoke on the Botch, saying, "It is frustrating when it is something that should be ready to go on a live television show, but at the same time, it is a live television show, and it is not my first day. So I know things don't always go like they're supposed to go. Hence why I didn't fall down and hold my face, because I don't trust anything after 20 years of wrestling." It didn't quite save the segment, but it was probably better than selling the fireball that didn't hit him. And now, hot tag to Luke.
Thank you for your support on Patreon, the $100 Man CD Horver and Angelic Angelo Mercado. Get your own Patreon shoutout over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. And now it's time for my review of Monday Night Raw, aka Boy Triple H sure does love those interference and distraction spots edition of Monday Night Raw. In about 5 minutes. The show opened with the Judgment Day cutting a promo on, you guessed it, Edge, AJ Styles and Rey Mysterio, which I'm pretty sure they've been doing in some capacity since WrestleFreaking-Mania. Both Balor and Priest were watted during their promos, but it was Dom here, who this week was dressed as your sister's new boyfriend that definitely likes Kid Rock, who got some good heat with Who's Your Daddy chants, to which Dom responded what we all know, it's Eddie. Only kidding, he said it was Rhea, to even better heat. I love this angle. AJ Styles and Rey Mysterio came out for a tag match against Finn and Priest, which followed your usual tag team routine. Heels work over babyface A, who then hot tags to babyface B for a brief flurry, and then he gets shut down, and the heels work over babyface B to build to a hot tag to babyface A. But then, something strange happened in my neighborhood. Dom and Rhea caused a distraction. That's not the strange thing, we should actually keep a tally of these interference and distraction spots tonight. But while building to the Rey hot tag, Balor just hit the coup de grace and pinned AJ Styles. There was no second hot tag. The heels just beat up Rey and AJ and then pinned Styles and stood tall. This was a dominant win and, if the WrestleVotes report is to be believed, something we're going to see more of. It really built up Balor for his match this weekend with Edge and furthered the frustration storyline for Styles, who then pushed over Mysterio after the match and was laid out by the rest of Judgment Day. What came next could have been my favorite thing on the show, but it didn't quite achieve what it could have been. Bobby Lashley arrived earlier in the day saying he wanted someone to step up and challenge him for the US Championship. So up walks Mustafa Ali, who says he's not waiting for his chance anymore. Bobby told him that if he keeps hustling, kid, he'll get his shot, and Ali told him he wasn't asking, he was demanding. And it set up a title match between the two of them that told the story of Ali refusing to give up. He kicked out of big moves, Bobby nearly won by countout, but Ali got back in, and he even refused to tap out to the Hurt Lock, instead passing out. It should have had Wheeler Yuta versus Jon Moxley vibes, but it didn't quite stick the landing. Part of the reason is that the crowd didn't give it the reaction it deserved, which was a common theme throughout the night. And the other problem, at least for me, was Ali hit a 450 splash on Bobby's arm, clearly setting up a story where Ali could target a weakness and create some near falls. But Bobby just stopped selling it and just hit some big moves, which sort of rendered this really cool spot utterly pointless. Seth Rollins then laid out Bobby after the match, setting himself up for the US title next week. This really should have made Ali. Like I said earlier, he could have been the Wheeler Yuta here. It just didn't really work. Hopefully they keep up with all of this, because there is some magic to be found here, because Mustafa Ali is an incredible talent. Speaking of Rollins, and he had a face-to-face segment with Matt Riddle ahead of their Fight Pit match, which will now be refereed by Daniel Cormier. They showed a great video package of the other two Fight Pit matches to get over this new stipulation to the new audience, which was awesome. And the realness of Rollins and Riddle's promos were mostly good. Rollins brought up Matt's divorce and how he can't see his kids, and Riddle responded by saying that Rollins got choked out by Roman Reigns, even though WWE.com says that Rollins won that match by DQ. And then he said he's never main evented WrestleMania. I mean, neither of you, Matt. And also, doesn't this count? That final point wasn't helped by Daniel Cormier sending in a cameo to announce that he was the referee for the match, even though they'd actually already talked about this a lot in the show. And he said he was in the building to see Rollins cash in the main event of WrestleMania 31 to win the title. Cormier's cameo, by the way, was a lot like mine. A lot of rambling with nothing of substance, when all the person asked for was for me to wish their mum a happy birthday. Anyway, this was all fine. Follow us on our new Twitter feed at _WrestleTalk. A link for it is in the video description. Speaking of birthdays, and The Miz did a segment backstage saying it was his birthday next week, and he hopes Dexter Lumis won't show up. Spoilers for next week, he will. And later, Gargano found Miz being caressed by Lumis, who had drawn a picture of the two of them together with a birthday cake. I really hope this storyline goes somewhere next week, because I feel like John Cena at the moment, screaming at The Undertaker to do something. Dakota Kai beat Candice LeRae in another good match that didn't get the crowd reaction it deserved, as these two were given time to really make some names for themselves. Kai won after interference and distractions from Damage Control, so there's another one. Johnny Gargano and Otis had an excellent big and little man match, where Gargano would get a flurry of offense, but would then get shut down by Otis's brute strength. Bit of a shame that Otis was squashed a few weeks ago by Braun Strowman, because this would have been a brilliant bit of character building rather than character rehabilitation. And Otis won after distraction and interference by Chad Gable and Austin Theory. They continued to beat down Gargano when came down to make the save, and then beat Gable despite distractions and interference by Otis. Gable's German suplex on Braun was the lone highlight of this, and Omos was shown backstage to confirm our fears that they are indeed building to Braun versus Omos at some point. Bianca Belair and Bayley signed a contract for their ladder match this Saturday, and Bayley used a video screen distraction to show Damage Control beating down Belair's and friends. Bliss challenged Io Sky to a match to avenge her best friend Asuka, who was injured in the melee. The QR code on the back of the contract was a nice touch, and more subtle than the one earlier in the night. Earlier in the night, we had an excellent segment featuring the best storyline in WWE right now, The Bloodline, which set up a match between Solo Sikoa and Angelo Dawkins. The two had a totally fine match, but it was all about the story around the ring. Sami Zayn, while trying to hype Sikoa from the apron, got into an argument with Jey Uso, who was telling him to stop trying to help, and in the fracas distracted the referee from counting a 3 count for Sikoa. Dawkins ran wild, but some more Sami Zayn distractions allowed Sikoa to hit the spinning solo for the win. But this right here is how you do distraction and interference finishes. These weren't just done for the sake of them being there or to protect a character in defeat, it was done to further a storyline, and I loved all of this. Edge cut a promo on Balor, and Io Sky beat Alexa Bliss in the main event following, you guessed it, distraction and interference from Damage Control. It's like watching an episode of Dynamite. But it was all about building momentum for Damage Control ahead of this weekend and taking out all of Bianca Belair's and friends so that she won't have any help in the ladder match against Bayley. Simple and effective booking. And that's the story of this week's Raw. It was a simple and effective go-home Raw before the pay-per-view. All the talent on the pay-per-view won, and won emphatically, and it built some new potential storylines for the season premiere of Raw next week. Whatever that means. This week's Raw is 4 out of 5.
All right, yeah, you ready? Okay,
Yep.
Starting in
3, 2, 1.
I haven't got a goddamn clue how to play this game. I don't know why I'm even here. The substitute teacher's here, and the students on Monday Night SmackDown, they're gonna play.